Dear Minister Kazimír, dear State Secretary Javorčík, dear Excellencies, dear friends, my name is Robert Vaš. I'm the Secretary General of the Slovak Atlantic Commission, and as the founding member of the Center for European Affairs, it is my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of all the organizers at the first Tatra Summit in Bratislava. European Union is going through major changes that will have profound impact on the future form of the European Union. And these decisions about strategic importance have been shaped mostly in Western European capitals, in Brussels, Berlin, Paris. And we felt that we are lacking a proper discussion in Central Europe about the future of Europe. That's why we have decided with Ambassador Korčok to establish the Center for European Affairs and to establish Tatra Summit as a platform to bring the grand European debate to Central Europe and to contribute to the debate on the future of Europe from the Central European perspective. And Slovakia, as the only country of the Visegrad Four being in Eurozone, had the perfect preconditions to shape this debate. With this first Tatra Summit, we hope to establish a long-term tradition, an annual tradition, that will be increasingly able to influence and contribute to this big and grand European debate. But this would not be possible without our co-organizers and our partners. First of all, co-organizers, Brussels-based economic think tank, which was ranked the most influential economic think tank in Europe, Bruegel, the Institute for Financial Policy of the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Finance of the Slovak Republic, and our partners and sponsors as Erste and Slovenská sporiteľňa, BMW, Center for European Studies, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, representation of the European Commission, the Slovak Republic, International Visegrad Fund, and many others. Thank you for your great support, and thank you for your support to establish this long-term tradition. At the opening of this conference, we have two special guests that don't need any long introductions from my side, because they are very well known in this European community of thinkers. It's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Mr. Peter Kazimír. Welcome. And the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Peter Javorčík. So without any further ado, I would pass the floor to the Minister of Finance and Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable distinguished guests. After yesterday fruitful discussion, this is the moment of official opening speech. It's up to me in this moment. The history of the genuine economic and monetary union is a pretty short one. Many of you will remember that it was less than a year ago on the June European Council meeting when the initiative toward the genuine economic and monetary union was launched. In my view, the message was pretty clear then. The European Union institutional architecture is far from complete. It doesn't constitute a genuine union. It may be good enough for the good times, but it's bad for the bad times, for the crisis times. The second message is that short-term ad hoc measures are not enough to overcome the Eurozone crisis. In one sentence, the message of the initiative is that Europe needs a smart integration, financial, fiscal, economic, and political one. I think that this diagnosis is correct. It's true that establishing EFSF and ESM, as well as the OMT intervention by the ECB, have helped to avoid the worst-case scenarios. The situation has calmed down, and the financial markets indicators are relatively good at the moment. But there is no place for complacency. The crisis is not over yet. hopefully we are over the hill, but the crisis still is here. The real economy is still in the bad shape, with unemployment reaching record levels. There are still acute problems in Europe: financial disintegration, underinvestment, and low business confidence. To face these unprecedented challenges, we shall have to take unprecedented steps. We are moving toward a single European banking system. We are all consolidating public finances. At the same time, we must restart economic growth. I see it's impossible to carry out all these enormous tasks individually at each other's expense. Despite the hard times, I do believe in the European project. If we stand the test, the crisis will not mark the end, but rather a new start for an even closer union, our common union, union for better life. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. I'm quite glad that I can see you after yesterday, quite a demanding discussion and a very good after discussion. Today in good mood and good shape, all of you. And also, this brings me to the duty also to thank the organizers of this event for the preparation of the conference, which I think is quite unique in Slovakia, but I think also in the regional context. And I think that this type of conferences are needed in our region. Looking at the program, I'm also quite delighted to see many distinguished guests, truly shapers of the European policies. And we've seen a high quality discussion yesterday, and I think it's also promise for vibrant and inspiring debates which we will have today as well. Why is organizing a conference dedicated to the EMU so important today? The EU is changing rapidly, and it was said already many times. But we feel also that many times it is also difficult to explain properly the decisions which are taken in the meeting rooms in Brussels to wider public. Therefore, this initiative of the Center for European Affairs and its partners to create a distinct platform for such a public debate is a needed one. And it's important to bring so-called Brussels topics and Brussels discussions closer to the decision makers in the capitals and to the wider audience. For the last 4 years, the EU has experienced truly tough times. But still, I can see also some positive elements of and effects of this. Crisis revealed the shortcomings of the EMU, and what's also important, accelerated the need for change. We have already undertaken some important steps, some measures were agreed, and some fundamental reforms also proceeded, such as a six-pack, two-pack, fiscal compact. In December, we saw a very important decision on the creation of the banking supervisory mechanism. However, finding an optimal model of functioning of the EU is, and especially of the Eurozone, is really the distance for a long-run process. In coming months, what I see as a key challenges for the EU, and there are at least three. Firstly, how we will be able to comply with our own rules, our own commitments concerning fiscal consolidation. And this issue became even more challenging as the outlook of economic growth for this year is not very encouraging. Debate is around the corner, and already yesterday we touched upon that. And it's not just the debate about economic fundamentals or economic debate, but also debate which will be highly politically charged. Secondly, how we will be able to fulfill our own ambitions concerning the roadmap for strengthened EMU as was defined in December by EU leaders. And thirdly, third challenge, how we will be able to implement our own structural reforms in our countries in order to be more competitive and to create conditions for growth in coming years. Consequence of the financial and economic crisis is also crisis of confidence. And if we want to regain the confidence, both internally in the EU, but also vis-à-vis our partners around the world, we need to deliver all these challenges, all three fronts. This is the only way to prevent Europe from similar crises to reappear in the future as we witnessed in the last couple of years. And what is the Slovak perspective for these challenges? I think that we have an interesting story as Slovaks to tell. We received green light to start our accession negotiations just at the end of '99, when our neighbors were negotiating at a full speed. However, in 10 years' time, Slovakia, less than 10-year times, in the beginning of 2009, Slovakia became a member of Eurozone and is still the only Eurozone member from Visegrad countries, from our closest neighbors. And I have to tell that despite the current problems of the Eurozone and certain unpopular consequences of being a member of Eurozone, like participation in the bailouts, we are and we want to remain at the core of the European integration. We believe that further integration can be the way to overcome crises, providing it will lead to sound fiscal and economic policies in all member states. We believe also that our success depends on the well-functioning EMU, on creating conditions to increase competitiveness, and delivering more on the single market. Another sensitive aspect of the process of strengthening of the EMU is inevitable gap which is being created between Eurozone members and the rest of the 27 or soon to be 28. And this sensitivity from our perspective, Slovak one, is also highlighted by the fact that I mentioned before that we are the only Visegrad member of the Eurozone. It is understandable that not every country can or wishes to proceed with integration with the same pace. However, we have to preserve institutional integrity of the EU as much as possible, and Eurozone has to remain open club and be ready to accept further members. To conclude this opening speech, let me touch one important issue and challenge which I see for the EU, and it's the issue of democratic legitimacy. Is the so-called fourth pillar of the strengthening of the EMU process, but which is, I feel, sometimes often a bit forgotten pillar. You will not avoid the feeling that the EU is something distant when you talk to people, politicians, journalists in Bratislava, but not only in Bratislava, but also maybe in Hague or Paris. And by the way, these cities are much closer geographically to Brussels than, for example, Eastern Slovakia to Bratislava. When we speak about democratic legitimacy, we think mostly about enhancing the accountability of decisions taken at the European level vis-à-vis European Parliament. And that's the way how the Brussels is taking this. However, a key challenge is to increase ownership of the European processes at the national level, in the national politics. Here, I believe that especially national parliaments should play a stronger role. It is not enough just to introduce changes, reforms. Equally important is to explain them. And it is a known fact that one opposes things he does not understand. The better and more patiently we explain steps we take, the higher public consent we will achieve. Therefore, and I am coming again to the importance of this event, I believe that this conference will contribute to better understanding of the current European processes and where the EU is heading. Ladies and gentlemen, the agenda of the conference is really challenging, and I am looking forward to the outcomes, but even more for one other thing, that we are starting today a new tradition of high-level event in Bratislava, Tatra Summit, which will be dedicated to shaping of the future of Europe. Thank you very much.
Dear Mr. Minister, dear Mr. State Secretary, thank you for your introductory speeches and for your leadership. And looking at the conference and the program, we go on without the break. So I would like to ask the panelists of the first keynote session towards a genuine economic and monetary union, Ambassador Rastislav Kačer, Ambassador Franz van Dale, Mr. Harald Weiglein, and Mr. Marty Hetemaki to come to the floor. Thank you.